This is the Energy Makers Show, featuring the innovators, financiers, and policymakers focused on the global energy demand. Brought to you by NRG, moving clean energy forward. And here's your host, Paul Dickerson.
Hi, I'm Paul Dickerson, and welcome to another episode of the Energy Makers Show. First up today, Vance Nobe, founder and CEO of Akari Energy. Following that, Jerry Patterson, Commissioner of the Texas General Land Office, telling us about the challenges onshore and some of the opportunities offshore. All that right after this.
Where will the energy come from to move us forward? From natural sources in abundant supply, or perhaps a man-made source? At NRG, we believe innovation will solve our energy needs. That's why NRG is moving away from fossil fuels towards wind, solar, and other sustainable technologies to power the smart grid, the electric car, and our clean energy future. We're using all of our energy to develop more of it.
This is the Energy Makers Show, brought to you by NRG, moving clean energy forward. And now, back to the Energy Makers Show with your host, Paul Dickerson.
Welcome to another episode of the Energy Makers Show. I'm here today with Vance Nobe, co-founder of Akari Energy. Vance, great to have you on the program.
Thanks, Paul. I'm very happy to be here.
Well, tell us about Akari.
Well, Akari Energy, we are a renewable energy company, and we do many, many things in renewable energy: solar, wind, as well as biomass, consulting, as well as development. But right now, our major line of business is solar power development. And we have been very successful with projects throughout the U.S., and we are continually looking for new projects to develop.
Well, let's stick there on the solar projects. With low natural gas prices, many of our project developer friends, certainly in the power space, have expressed some concerns about finding funding or making their projects economic. How are you going against that trend?
Well, it's all about the relationships that we've already developed. We have business partners overseas in China, in Japan, and also in Europe that help us fund our projects. So if there are developers out there, which I meet them all the time, I always tell them that we can be potential business partners. If they're missing pieces of the pie, such as funding or different aspects, we can fill those gaps and come together with funding, with engineering, consulting, or with other pieces of the pie to make the project work.
All right, so as you're looking at these project opportunities, what to you is an attractive project?
Well, ultimately the finance, the economics of the project has to work. If the project looks very attractive from an economic standpoint, then we certainly will want to spend the time to investigate and work through the details after that point. Really, as far as I'm concerned, solar power is a great thing to help the environment and to really improve conditions in the energy field. But at the end of the day, it's a financial investment vehicle, and we've made it a very attractive one.
Well, are there certain states that you're seeing where the financing works more than others?
It all depends. On the states, the southern states, which we have a lot of concentration on, they have great solar characteristics. The environmental conditions are perfect for solar energy production. The incentive levels may not be as high as areas such as maybe the Northeast, where there are very high solar incentives, but the solar production is not as well. Just by the combination of the two incentives or the potential solar power production, we can make a project work.
Well, let's talk about the incentives. Certainly at the federal level, there's concern about the debt. We've got an election coming up. What's your take on federal incentives, state incentives, and how that'll affect this project development?
Well, incentives it's a very complicated term, and there are many facets to it. Incentives for the solar industry is not just a free handout. What it does, it encourages businesses to invest in whatever that industry is, and in this case is solar. These incentives encourage our investors who are overseas to bring their money into our country and create jobs and fund those jobs. So our industry alone accounts for hundreds of thousands of jobs.
Sure.
And they're created, and they're not really energy or solar jobs, many of the jobs that we are creating and sustaining are just simply jobs like electricians, civil workers, concrete workers, and many associated industries that our industry supports. So there's many, many facets to it. To cut off those incentives would mean that that resource of funds overseas would also be cut off. And there, on the federal level, there's a 1603 grant which is up for expiration at the end of this year. It's a very, very important grant for our industry.
What's your prediction?
Well, of course, I'm part salesman as far. I predict that it's going to pass, but there are many different aspects to that, and right. We are certainly pushing and pushing for that passage to come through.
Well, help me differentiate Akari a bit from other solar developers. One, certainly you have access to capital that others might not. Tell us about one or two of the projects that you've already developed.
Some of the projects are in Texas, some are in Louisiana. One of the projects is on one of the things is very important is distributed generation. What we've done is we've taken an area, and instead of just, let's say, installing on one roof, we take an area and we install on several roofs. So the cumulative added value is in the megawatt range or multi-megawatt range of solar power generation, and we package them all together as one investment package. So it makes it very, very attractive for our support base.
All right, so your project in Louisiana,
right.
Tell us about that.
The projects in Louisiana are distributive generation projects.
What size?
These are actually under the 1 megawatt range.
Right.
We have another project we're actually working right now is at 1 megawatt, which is in New Mexico, also in California as well, and also as far away as Indiana. And these projects are a combination of 100 kilowatt systems and to 200 kilowatt systems, but they're combined together, 5 to 10 projects together in the same city or same area, so that makes up a 1 megawatt project.
Now you've branded the company the Energy Company for America. I know you're involved in solar, but tell us a little bit about some of your other projects, some of the consulting or even the energy audits or sales.
Well, our main line is solar, but we also consult on other issues such as wind, even things as energy efficiency. Energy efficiency is, in some cases, almost as important as solar. In some industrial buildings, for example, if you add solar on their rooftop in a distributive generation mode, and you combine that with energy efficiencies, their net economic value is significantly multiplied. And it makes a big impact. So we combine many different things where it makes sense. For the net result is our customers get a better economic benefit.
Now, 5 years ago, you made the choice of leaving paradise and coming, I guess, maybe to energy paradise. You left Hawaii and you came to Texas. Why?
Well, Hawaii is beautiful. It is paradise in the visual sense, but Texas really is paradise in a business sense, an economic sense. It's very easy for a startup company to start up in Texas with funding from outside and to really grow organically. And there are many, the setup of Texas allows us to grow without too much regulation, our taxation is very low. So it allows us to take that money and reinvest it into our company and keep growing and growing exponentially.
And for those investors or those CEOs targeting Hawaii, what are some of the opportunities? What are some of the pitfalls?
Well, Hawaii is great. Hawaii, the cost of energy is very, very high. So the opportunity there is for solar power where the costs of installation keep falling as well. It makes sense that solar power can provide energy to Hawaii at a very competitive price. The only challenge is in Hawaii, of course, is land. There is a very limited space. Our island of Oahu, where most of the people live, is only about 35 miles across. So we don't have a lot of land space. Right. But Hawaii is, because our energy costs are so high, we're always coming up with innovative ways of saving money. We come up with not just solar, but we combine it with other thermal transfer techniques to save money on our billings as well as energy efficiency. By combining all these different technologies, we're able to keep those costs down.
Well, Vance, thank you so much for coming by today.
Well, thank you very much, Paul. It was a pleasure being here.
And that concludes my discussion with Vance Nobe. We'll be right back with more right after this.
The future is here.
You can't see it. It's electric.
At NRG, we're providing clean energy and now charging stations to make the electric car a reality. Kinda makes you want a boogie woogie, doesn't it? NRG, moving clean energy forward.
It's electric.
This is the Energy Makers Show, brought to you by NRG, moving clean energy forward. And now back to the Energy Makers Show with your host, Paul Dickerson.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Energy Makers. Today we have with us Commissioner Jerry Patterson at the Texas General Land Office. Commissioner, great to have you on the program.
Good to be here, Paul.
I've heard this Texas Land Office has generated billions. How is it that you generate that money, and then where do you use the funds?
Well, it's a long story. I'll try to condense it. Land Office is the oldest agency in Texas. Texas came into the Union cash poor, land rich. We retained much of our land, although 95% of the surface in Texas is privately owned. But we retain minerals. So we have 13 million acres. Some of that's submerged in the Gulf of Mexico. Some of that's where we own the minerals and the surface. Some of it where we own just the minerals. And we lease those, and all of those revenues are dedicated by the Texas Constitution to public education. So over the years, we've made in excess of $10 billion, and our record year was about 3 years ago, and it was $500 million in that year. And that's our gross receipts, and our expenditures are around roughly 50 million. So that's a pretty good return on investment.
Absolutely, it is. So tell me how it benefits the schools.
Well, constitutionally dedicated, so all those revenues go into the permanent school fund.
Got it.
That has grown to about 25 billion currently, and it's used to make direct appropriations to school districts. Actually, it goes to the legislature. They make the appropriation. It's not a lot of money, maybe $200-300 per kid per year on a good year. But if you think about a school district that would have to forego an amount equal to $300 times the number of students, that would be a big impact, and that would be made up by local property taxpayers. Probably equally, if not more important, is that $25 billion is used to guarantee bonds that school districts issue. So all of them have the highest rating. With the highest rating, there's less debt service, lower taxes for local taxpayers. Big impact, and all because of something the legislature did in 1854. That's still impacting Texans today.
Well ahead of their time.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I know your office is involved, certainly outside of just oil and gas, also in renewables. For our friends in Boston or in Massachusetts or even out in Silicon Valley, you know, they talk a lot about offshore wind. Can you tell our audience a little bit about how the Texas offshore differs from the shorelines of other states? Well,
Texas is sovereign out to 3 marine leagues, which is 9 nautical or 10.36 statute miles. We're the only state in the Union that has a sovereignty along its entire coastline in excess of 3 nautical miles. Ours is 9.
All right, so all other states, 3 miles,
states.
Texas.
Florida has similar on the Gulf side, but we're the only state with our entire coastline. Sovereignty goes out 9 nautical miles. And that is because Sam Houston was our real estate guy in 1845, if you will. He insisted that our boundaries as a state be the same as they were as a republic. We claimed 9 nautical miles as a republic, as had Mexico, as had Spain. And so we came into the Union with that additional submerged land, which no one really cared much about until the 30s and 40s, when offshore production became a possibility and a reality. And that's a whole nother story, because then the federal government tried to take it away from us in what was called the Tidelands controversy. And we stuck that one where it should be stuck, and we won that one. And we now have billions of dollars of additional royalty income in the Gulf of Mexico, and we now have the ability to do offshore wind leases without the federal government involvement in the permitting process, except for the Corps of Engineers and the Coast Guard. And we can do an offshore permitting for a wind farm in a matter of months. instead of a matter of many, many years, as has been experienced up on the East Coast off Massachusetts with the Cape Wind Farm project.
Now, is that message getting out for these offshore developers? Who do they call?
Well, they call us.
Okay.
We're a one-stop shop. We are the lessee, we're the lessor. We're also the right-of-way owner. All that submerged land, you have one right-of-way owner to deal with, to put your cable on the bottom of the Gulf of Mexico to get it to the grid. We're easy to deal with, and we recognize that if they're not making money, we're not making money. So we want them to make money. And with that, you know, we were the first offshore wind lease in the United States, which folks frequently forget. Cape Wind has generated a lot of attention, but we did the first lease, I think, in 2004 or 5.
Well, Commissioner, you've been doing this, 9 years?
I'm in my third term, 9th year.
So what's next for you?
Well, I have an interest in the Lieutenant Governor's office. It's another statewide elected office that deals in all the issues that are important to Texas, not just the ones that the land office deals with, and including energy issues, including alternative renewable issues, and all those other issues that are going to be big in Texas, like water, like electricity. I mean, we have, you know, you don't recognize how much those two items are important until you turn a switch and nothing happens, or you open the faucet and there's no water. And if we don't do something in the next decade, those are the things that might happen here in Texas.
Well, good luck. Thank you for coming on.
All right. Thank you, Paul.
And that wraps this week's episode of The Energy Makers, heard on the radio nationwide and seen right here at TheEnergyMakers.com. I'm Paul Dickerson, and we'll see you next week.